The wheel of time turns and ages come and pass, leaving memories that become legend. Legend fades to myth, and even myth is long forgotten when the age that gave it birth comes again. In one age called the Third Age by some, an age yet to come, an age long past, a wind rose in the mountains of mist. The wind was not the beginning. There are neither beginnings nor endings to the turning of the wheel of time, but it was a beginning. So, I have finished all of the Wheel of Time books that were fully published by Robert Jordan. Knife of Dreams is the last book that he wrote solely by himself. What do I think of this series? I started reading Eye of the World basically Christmas 2021. So it's been a minute. It's been 5.5 years of me reading this series. I think that I slowed down in the middle of the series, but the first few books I was reading like one every month or two. And The Eye of the World is an excellent book. It starts off, it's very similar to Fellowship of the Ring, but then in the second half, Robert Jordan really takes this and turns it into his own story, his own book. And then you have The Great Hunt and The Dragon Reborn. The Great Hunt I thought was an excellent book. It really kicked off the story, turned it into an original fantasy series. And the only problem I had was that it really leveled up the characters so fast that it was sort of jarring. Then The Dragon Reborn really went away from the main character and really explored the other characters, Matt and Perrin, and really gave a good perspective on the overall story and how he's going to try to break down the different tropes. Then this, you could sort of say the second trilogy is actually where I slowed down a little bit. So Shadow Rising, I really liked it. I really liked how Perrin was in here. I really liked how it brought everything together. Rand was exploring a lot of different things in the East. Fires of Heaven started to explore a lot of the different aspect of the Aes Sedai, the magic users in this universe. And then Lord of Chaos, a little bit slow with some of the parts. And Fires of Heaven and Lord of Chaos were actually two of the books that took me the longest to read in this series. But the ending to Lord of Chaos, so sweet, so crazy, so fantastic. So if nothing else, I am glad that I read this series so that I could get to this ending, because this was phenomenal. Then you start to get into what people call the slog. So, a couple of things about the slog. First of all, these first two books, A Crown of Swords and Path of Daggers, I love these books. I thought that Robert Jordan's writing style improved significantly. It was fascinating. There was so much stuff that was happening in here. Yeah, I get it. Some of the storylines were a little held back. There wasn't a lot of stuff happening in them, but I loved these two books. And then you get into Winter's Heart and Crossroads of Twilight. So Winter's Heart, I did like Winter's Heart, and I finished it pretty quickly. Actually, this was the fastest book for me. That I just blasted through it. It was very interesting. There was a lot of stuff that was going on. It's a big event at the end of the book. Crossroads of Twilight was pretty bad. I mean, there's stuff that happens in there that's necessary for the story, so I get it and I understand, but it feels like it could have been edited better. You could have put these two books together. Instead, this fast forward in time and this rewinds in time, and it's just doesn't work that well, and it feels like it could have been edited and made more concise. Maybe I'd feel different if I read the whole series again, but that's the way I feel. And then Knife of Dreams. Now, I do think that some of the earlier books in Wheel of Time didn't have necessarily the best writing, but the plot and the pacing were on point. Then in some of the more sloggier books, the writing was better, but the plot and the pacing was a little off. Now, Knife of Dreams is the best of both worlds, in my opinion. The writing style in here is fantastic, and the pacing and the storytelling and the plot movement are almost perfect. This is a great novel. And I think that this is almost like a perfect send-off before Robert Jordan's unfortunate passing. Is like ended the series in a way that is just if this was all there was, I think I would be satisfied with like having read all of these books, because it sets up the universe, it sets up the challenges. It's almost like it feels like this whole book series almost feels like a serial book series where it's just like adventure, 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 adventure. And then it's like this portion is almost like one big long adventure where you don't necessarily get a satisfying ending at each of the books, but that this is like a really long adventure. Whereas all of these books feel like individual adventures. So, read all of these. What is this? In paperback, I think it is that I've read 9,356 pages so far. And then I have the last three books, Gathering Storm, Towers of Midnight, and Memory of Light. And this is, what is this? Roughly, it's like almost 3,000 pages. It's like 2,500 pages. And so these ones were written by Brandon Sanderson with lots of notes from Robert Jordan. So I look forward to reading these. I'm probably going to plan on finishing this series this summer, and I like the series enough that I started collecting the hardbacks. I got this one for cheap from the local library. I'm starting to pick them up, would I recommend this series? Like knowing everything, knowing that it's taken me like 5.5 years to get through it. I know, but I've got 3 kids, I've got a job, I've got stuff to do. I think I would recommend this series. This is a great series. It definitely has flaws. Robert Jordan does not write women very well, but I think that he was going for a vibe of like showcasing the flaws that are in people, in men and women, because both the men and the women have a lot of flaws in these books. And it's been a very enjoyable ride. I think this is a great series. So, if you like reading nerdy fantasy books and you want to talk about nerdy stuff, hit a like and subscribe, and join me to analyze some of the different books that I read.